like a set ninja. You never really hear him, while he's setting up these shots. You don't know. He's just sort of quiet in his space, but when you do see him working, he's thinking about it. You know that he's creating this canvas and this texture that's going to, pull you into the scene.
How much, I'm not familiar with how much is storyboarded in the moment, how much is storyboarded, prevised, and how much are they figuring it out in the moment?
Well, we don't change much. We rehearse the scenes in so much that we'll read through them. They're not always necessarily blocked. And there'll be conversations occasionally with blocking or where should we stand or how does it play out. But it's not like you're just showing up and falling right into something. Craig has a very strong opinion about what he wants, but he's also able to get to the location and sort of find that with the different departments.
I'm curious,
How about the music in this fucking thing?
Yeah, listen, everything about this movie is fantastic. This is just one of those special films.
The guy that is singing in this song, when you guys make the joke about who's singing, is it a woman or a man? That's actually Zahler singing.
Yeah, but not in traditional Zahler voice, to be fair.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like that.
But I just marvel at it that this guy writes all of those songs. He literally, as he's editing the movie, he writes and composes all of those songs, and then he has like the OJs perform those songs. It's unbelievable the level of talent and specificness that he has. But he's writing and producing, in this case, jazz pieces that are fairly complicated, as well as soul songs or gospel songs, and he really, he's so detailed with it. This Music and Brawl was the same, and in this movie, and I just find it to be just remarkable to have a filmmaker that really is also writing original pieces and composing them along with writing the piece and being so involved in every aspect. I think is just crazy.
I think Clint Eastwood maybe composes some stuff, but I don't know of many filmmakers. Or am I wrong? Are there other filmmakers that do that?
Yeah, I'm not aware of the composing and writing of songs. I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I think Eastwood did for Mystic River, but he's not singing.
Very true. Talk a little about on set. You guys made this for a reasonable budget. It was not some lavish production. How is it when you're making a movie? How was it on set for this one in terms of, are you getting more than 3 takes? Are you, what was it like? What was the energy like on set?
It's grueling. It's a grueling shoot. I mean, Zahler says this. It's just the nature of the ambition of the page count and the budget and all of that kind of stuff. So these guys had it very challenging because you guys were sitting in makeup for very long periods of time. It's a lot to get done. I mean, Brawl was similar in some ways. It's worth it, and the movie's, everyone's there and committed to it, but it can be a very, very long process. That being said, we never walk away from a scene without Craig feeling like he has what he wants. And if you ask him what take, he will accommodate you most times.
Do you guys ever did you ever shoot the rehearsals, or is it always the rehearsal and warm up a little bit and then you're shooting?
Well, I think we rehearsed a couple weeks before we started. I think at least a few weeks. Mel and I got together. Didn't have any scenes with you, which sucked. Yeah. Michael and I rehearsed together, and so by the time we got to set, we were all of us were living pretty close to living in those characters, and so it wasn't too much of a rehearsal. We would do a run through, or we talk about it, amongst ourselves, and then we step on it and we shoot it. So it wasn't too much rehearsal. We didn't do too many takes either. Zahler felt he got something early, then he got it. He didn't feel like he needed to overshoot it. But if he didn't get it, like Vince said, he's very specific. He knows exactly what he wants, and he'll spend time to get it the exact way he wants.
Memorable moments from filming. For each of you, what's like the day or two that you are always going to remember?
I have no interest in being white. That was
not the answer I was expecting.
No, you're right. That was tough. I asked Zahler because I was like, what's the idea? Like, what's Henry Johns' idea behind the white face? And he said to me, well, Henry's idea is, how else can you walk into a bank with a gun and nobody pays attention to you? And I thought, yeah, that's about right.
Unique memories from the set. let's see. The final sequence, if you will, with the van and all that, I just felt like I was in the Museum of Modern Art or something. It was just the aesthetics of it was so just kind of vacant and specific with like the van, and then we put the mask on, and I just, that whole set experience felt like almost we were floating in a different space. It was so late at night. We were only shooting, obviously night shoots, so you kind of get tired and get fatigued. And then what we were shooting was so kind of climactic and odd, and just all the cars and props that were involved. That was very almost like a haze.
Was anchovy always in the script?
Anchovy was always in the script, yeah. I think it says a lot that the character doesn't has somewhat of a conscience, and that there's things that, obviously what I like is all the characters are complicated, but I think it suggests for Anthony that he's attempting not to swear. And it goes along with not really being gung-ho to jump into this case from the beginning. So it's comedic, but it also is saying like someone who is oddly choosing not to participate in kind of vulgar language. And then of course he is, brought along with his friend against his better judgment. It's sort of a morality tale from those characters' point of view.
For both of you, when you're getting ready to film, you say like you're a week out, how much are you memorizing almost all the dialogue, what you're really going to be doing, and how much is it sort of like the night before you're doing a cram session for the following day?
Oh, I like to know it all so that I can forget it. I don't like to learn on the fly. I like to spend time with it, and that was one of the benefits of having a rehearsal period, was that you can actually, get it inside your bones. I like to say, there's a guy I work with. I think he's here tonight. Tom Draper, who's my acting coach. I always run over things with, and so I like to know it so that I can forget it. I don't like to learn on the fly, but sometimes it is called for that. I've been on pictures where, you show up and there is a rewrite and you do have to just sort of go with it, But at that point, hopefully you've done enough of the character work so that it's still coming from that character. It's not about the words so much, it's more about the intention.
I like to memorize it and then forget it, so then I'll have to revisit it the night before. I like to be off book with it well before I get to shooting. But then I won't look at it too much prior to that once you're kind of in the flow of shooting. So then the night before I'll kind of go back to it. And I do think more, it's like improv, you sort of, you kind of have ideas about it and you sort of drop it and just kind of go to the scene and listen. And sometimes see what happens, There's preparation, I guess, to forget.
I've spoken to some actors that love to listen to music before a take. Some love to do push-ups. I've heard so many different stories about what people like to do on set. For each of you, how do you typically like to work on set, and how did it gel with the people around you?
A lot of push-ups and music for me. I'm cranking the tunes. I'm pumping up the pecs, and then I'm looking to shoot. That sounds awesome. But there are people who are like that. Can't talk to them. Good morning. Oh, you fucking scared them because they got to pump up real quick. And then get it, and they're in the scene.
I'm talking about my process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there's a time and place to do stuff depending on what the scene calls for. I have used music because I think music can take you so far emotionally so quickly, but it's not a constant for me. I like to stay loose and be prepared so you don't have anything that you're nervous about that day. So, I can kind of be loose and doing what I do. I feel like I do a better job, and then I can kind of step in and focus when it's time to step in. But there are scenes that you feel, cause a little more preparation than others.
For this, we did a screening of Brawl in Cell Block 99 right before we started shooting, and I was blown away by Zahler's music, and so I started listening to that soundtrack. So I listened to that soundtrack all throughout this picture. And sometimes I use music because, like Vince said, it will take you emotionally to places, and it's a good way to zone out. Sometimes on a set, put your headphones and listen to something to set a mood or a tone that you want to achieve. But yeah, I've done push-ups on sets too.
There's nothing wrong with that. Right before the love scene, did you pop out a set? Did you get a quick triangle set in?
Well,
Or
Barb
was that more
was
squats because
so-
the ass was in play?
Barb was looking, so I wanted to make sure that I was, pretty tight. A couple punches.
Do you remember? I mean, the movie's pretty long.
I always figure at that point it's too late, isn't it? Like, what's the set of push-ups going to do at that point?
No, I was getting tips from Michael John.
I know, but they know it.
Michael
knows what he's doing.
Michael knows what he's doing. I do not. So
But
I
I'm
was
still
asking
thinking,
Michael.
Yeah, I get it.
You got to do what you got to do in these
I think the
situations.
push-up should probably happen months before. What's the next question?
The movie's pretty long, but I'm curious if there was any deleted scenes. Do you
No.
remember?
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
Not that I'm aware
We
of.
shot the whole script. What you see is the whole script.
It's amazing. It's so interesting what Zahler is able to accomplish with his films because it's just a very unique voice and a very unique style. Did you ever get the vibe on how was he on set if you missed a word? Is he watching every comma?
He's so easy to be around. I mean, he would remind you he cares about his dialogue, but he doesn't bring an energy that feels prohibitive. But his process is so amazing. He writes 5 pages a day. He won't write more than that. Where a lot of writers feel like, okay, if they're getting hot and something's coming, then why not keep going? But he forces himself to stop. And I asked him why, and he said, because it gives me the rest of the day to kind of flip over in my mind, what's the next thing that's gonna happen in a way that's not expected? So he'll kind of spend the rest of the day thinking and going, okay, for instance, I know they have to rob the bank, but what's the way they could do that that's not what we've seen or an interesting way of doing it? And then he'll rewrite the pages from the day before, right? He kind of does his first rewrite simultaneously. So he'll go back to the 5 pages that were written the day before, he'll rewrite those. And then he'll write his new pages, and even if he's getting excited, he'll stop and do the process. He does this on novels. He's currently, I believe, writing his first comic book that he's created. He is just a very passionate, meticulous, committed, very unique voice, Zahler.
For both of you, talk a little bit about filming the action. Is it something when you're reading it on the page that you're excited to do? Because from what I understand, action takes a lot of time to get it to be right.
So you guys had that, you and Mel had the more elaborate fights.
Yeah, we had the fight scene, but Mel's such a pro. He's been doing this, and obviously all the action movies he's done, so he knows exactly how to do it. And you always try to create a space where you feel safe and that no one's going to get hurt, and even within the fight, it's still about telling the story. So we wanted to be we were very conscious of that, and Zahler was very conscious of, okay, we're not just having a fight scene, all out, drag out, knock down, blows for blows, just because that's going to be cool. It's like, okay, what story are we telling, and how are we going to tell it? And the fight scene was designed for that. And even the scenes, the shootouts, they were more about bringing it down as opposed to taking it up, that you see in a lot of action movies where it's just, hey, let's blow this thing out. But Zahler is all about subtlety, and he's not afraid of that. We obviously know he's not afraid to let things breathe, and it's the same way within the fight scenes and the shootouts.
One of the things you really need is a powerful and scary villain. And something about this movie is you have someone or a group of people that are ruthless. So talk a little bit about that aspect of the film.
Yeah, I mean, they're just very specifically unemotional, and they kind of establish right away what they're prepared to do. So it makes it such a formidable force coming towards you. And just the stuff it's just cool and weird, like using the electronic thing in the bank is so crazy, right? And then a bit comedic when he shoots up the store at the end. He does a good job with tone.
One of the things, though, there is a pretty graphic scene. Again, I don't want to do spoilers, but where someone's cutting into something. Can you look at that when you're as a film fan? Can you watch that yourself, or do you turn away?
I will admit, I was up there tonight in the back corner eating M&Ms as I was watching that scene. My mother's a nurse, so there's not much that makes me queasy. Spent a lot of time in hospitals, so I was fine with it. I was like, oh, okay, we don't want to talk about it because of spoilers, but yeah, that's happening again, and I was like, that's cool. No problem.
I have to do that thing with my mind where I have to go, this is fake. Like, this is not real, but it still makes me I don't like it. But then I have to say to myself, they're not really doing this, but then I go, yeah, this does make me a little. So I don't like staring at that kind of stuff like medical shows or things like that. But I can watch it as I talk myself through it, reminding myself that it's not real.
The sound is the more of the thing that gets me rather than the actual picture in this. It's like the sound of it cutting. That's the thing that sort of gets me.
Before filming begins, you're looking at the script, you see what's in front of you. What's the scene that you are a little bit nervous to do, if any, and what's the scene that you are counting the days to film it?
The opening scene. Terrified. And terrified because, you know, that's forever, my ass is forever on screen. You know, so terrified of that. But also wanted to make sure that it was, you know, respectful with the actress and that we, you know, talked it out and it was done in a manner and handled in a way that we both felt, you know, comfortable and safe, and also that it was gonna, you know, play nicely, you know, for the story. And then the last scene, I was very excited about the scene with Mel in the car when everything turns. You know, there's so much about Henry Johns' character that for me was when I read it, he was always a couple steps ahead. And so when, you know, his adversaries were talking about his grammar and focusing on how he was saying what he was saying and what he was saying, they were missing what he was doing. He was always ahead of them. And so when it comes to a head, and Richmond is the first person to actually say that, and you know, and I love the way Mel delivers it, you know, and he just said, you're a whole lot smarter than what you sound, a whole lot smarter from what I've seen. And he's recognized that, oh man, this guy's been ahead, and that makes him uncomfortable, and so he panics, and what we do when we panic, we get fearful. And he makes a mistake. Because that whole scene could have been worked out so differently if he didn't. But that's when he realizes, and that's what I loved about, you know, really loved about that Henry Johns in that moment is that, you know, he says it's good to be underestimated because nobody saw it coming except him.
I don't know if there was one particular scene, but I just, the whole piece was really, you know, Zahler stuff is to me just, you know, so fun to go and dive into, just to go be in those situations. And I was excited just to see the stuff that I wasn't in because I liked it so much when I read it, you know. I wouldn't say there was one particular scene I was dying to do. Just the whole piece I was really excited. You know, it's so rare, sadly, that there's unique pieces that don't fit in. You know, it's hard to not make if you don't want to make a 3-minute pop song, it's really challenging nowadays, you know. So it's just so nice that there's a piece with the voice that, you know, Zahler's whole process, he doesn't test the movies. You know, I think they show it to like 10 people, and the only question he asks is, you know, are you confused? But he's not asking for anything else, because he's sort of a singular voice, and I really like that about him, and it's fun, and it's refreshing to go to work with someone who's not, we're not working from a place of is everyone gonna like it, or is all the audience is gonna accept it. He's really trying to tell a very unique story that he's passionate about, whether it's the music or the characters or the world or the morality tale or the things. And I also like for Zahler that it's not like he doesn't have a big, where he's not there saying I'm going to change the world. He's just really like enjoying this particular story. So I'm just excited to work with him because it is so different than most journeys are so far more concerned with being right than what it is when you work with Craig.
You and Zahler are 2 for 2. Both incredible movies. Please tell me you guys have talked about doing something else.
We have some other stuff. You know, it's funny, Craig, I should say some other stuff, but he doesn't make it easy on himself. You know, I think it's out as a book, and you should read it. It's one of the most beautiful things I've read. This would be a PG movie. It's a kid's movie. It's in black and white, and the lead of the movie is an orphan that is an animated puppet. And the rest of the people in the piece are human. And it's about an orphan. It's called Hug Chicken Penny. But it's a very, very, very long script, and it's not a very obvious choice, although it's quite beautiful. Really, really well done. So he just writes to his likings and his tastes, but it's a terrific piece.
I also am curious, one more follow-up for you. You've been working in the industry for a long time. Have you thought about getting into directing yourself?
I have, I've collaborated so many times in different ways. I've written things and I've edited on stuff before and produced things. And I would, my kids age right now. I've really enjoyed being with them, and I've been having fun going and doing things that I want to do, whether it's Hacksaw or the stuff with Zahler. And I really enjoyed that Fighting with Your Family movie I got to do with Stephen Merchant too. So I've been having fun doing picking things that I've enjoyed. I would be open to it potentially, but it's not something that I'm in the immediate pursuing.
Yeah, that's another really good movie, Fighting with My Family. I want to see if there's any questions out here. We have time for just a tiny little bit. Does anyone? It's really hard to see from here. I see something right there.